Hello, this is author Debra Parmley coming to you again with another March of the Writers video. This is the prompt for day 2, and yes, I'm catching up. I started a little behind. And the topic for day 2 is genre-lly speaking. So, speaking of the genres that I write, I'm a multi-genre author, and I'll do this more of a chronologically type of list. So, poetry. I started out writing poetry back in high school. Prior to that, as a child, I made sing-song rhymes in my head and sang them sometimes. But in high school, I wrote them. You won't see those anywhere because I think at some point I destroyed them. As teenagers are emotional. By college, I was writing poems and had poems published in literary magazines. And I began writing short stories in college. I went to Marywood College, and while there, I was the first student in the history of Marywood to receive first place in 2 categories of the Lambda Iota Tau writing competition, and that's the English Lit Honorary Society. The first student to get first place in 2 categories, and they went on to the national level. And those 2 categories were fiction and creative nonfiction. That one was a memoir piece. And at the time, professors would not advise me on which direction to go. I was considering an MFA, and none of them would pick which area I was strongest in. So one of my mentors and friends, a college professor, told me, Deborah, just write. Just write. So I did. Instead of going on to get the MFA, I didn't intend to teach at the college level, so I've just written ever since. It turned out to be good advice. And as a Gemini, Geminis love to create and play and write, and I haven't limited myself. Novel-length fiction. No, before the first novel, my first short story that was published was in an anthology called More Monsters from Memphis, and the title of my story was Vampire from Memphis. And so it was a horror anthology, and the editor of the anthology said, Deborah, you have a lot of romance in this story. So this was true. I later wrote my first novel after being challenged at a writing convention to write my first novel. And Dusty Richards, who was a Western author, challenged all of us there to enter his contest, and said the winner would get a full read by his agent. That was too good to pass up. Back then, you had to have an agent to get published. So I started out writing my first novel as a Western historical, which turned into a romance. It turns out that romance likes to creep into what I write, no matter what I start out writing. So two repetitions of things create a pattern, and patterns tell you things about people. So that tells you something about me and my writing. That short story also was up for a Darrell Award, and I had an interview on a local TV station and also on radio, WKNO with Khaki Walton, which was a lot of attention for having had my first short story be published in an anthology. We got the attention because those of us who were up for a Darrell Award got the attention, and the anthology editor was Elvis's estate attorney. So he had connections and knew how to promote. So the first novel, I entered, I entered into Dusty's contest. It did not win, but he did sit with me and went over it and told me what I needed to do to fix it. And by then his agent he was no longer with his agent, so that option was closed. But I had good advice and I went on to rewrite it, entered it in the Bobby Smith creative writing competition, and got third place. She gave me advice on fixing it. I rewrote it. I entered it in the American Title II competition. I became a finalist. That contest was put on by Dorchester Publishing and Romantic Times Magazine. And readers voted online for who would remain and who would be kicked off before the next round. I made it up to the third round. About that time, I landed an agent, and he later sold the magazine. No, he later sold the manuscript. So I had all this promotion in the magazine, and the stories had been vetted because Dorchester would have published any of us. So we had to have websites before we even had a book out. And this was the first book came out. I got the contract in 2007 through the agent. The first book came out in ebook in 2008 and in print in 2009. You can still get that book today. The title is Gone to Texas, A Desperate Journey. It was originally published as A Desperate Journey. So from that, I was with an agent and a publisher, and they wanted me writing Western historical romance. I also had written a contemporary romance with a military hero that was leaning toward romantic suspense, and that was my second novel. I had to find a different publisher for that one because the first publisher only wanted the Westerns. And I went on with that sort of process to write for 5 small presses. And of course, in 2009 to about 2012, during that time period, you had to have an agent. There was no indie publishing back then. So I went on to write different 1920s. I have 1920s historical romance. I have Western historical romance. I have contemporary romance. I have holiday romance. I have dystopian romance. I have urban fantasy romance. I have romantic suspense with military heroes. And that category is the one that I'm the most known for. I have the most books in that category, the most sales in that category. Those books, several of them made Amazon bestseller list in the paid categories. And 2 of them were in, I was in 2 Kindle Worlds with several of those books. And so that's what made me Amazon bestseller. Amazon promoted those Kindle World books. Eventually I got rights back to a bunch of these books, and all they needed was new covers, new ISBN numbers, and that made me go into a hybrid status, some with a publisher and some on my own, until eventually they were all rights returned to me, and I could be total indie, which is what I am today. Interestingly, although I had written urban fantasy romance, it wasn't a popular genre back then. So today I'm writing romantasy, and that book that was first came out as a short story, Vague Directions, came out as a short story, and now it is a novella, Vague Directions Into the Woods, and it is now the first book in my Reenactment Realm series, which is a romantasy series, and I am currently working on revising book 2, which is Rivalry in the Enchanted Meadow. In this new series, all the books will be set either at a Renaissance fair or an SCA medieval reenactment camping type of event with a feast and all the exciting things, which my husband and I have done in real life. We've done primitive camping. I shoot a Mongolian horse bow. I've made my own medieval dresses and tunics for him, and we have enjoyed stepping back in time, having fun with that, with friends and camping. And so I'm working on that book. Should be out in 2026, the second book in the Reenactment Realm series. I'm also working on the fourth book in my Green Brotherhood SEAL Team series. That one's set on a cruise ship, and those are romantic suspense. I'm writing in my nonfiction, so my memoir nonfiction. I have a book that I'm working on about our first year living in the motorhome, where we went on a 109-day trip from Ohio to the California Redwoods and back to Memphis. And in my travel writing, I have a travel blog, and I also write articles for Fresh Fiction, so you can find those on that website. And then I have this YouTube channel where I sometimes share videos from our travels. In nonfiction, I've also written freelance articles for magazines. I have done Cover Model Corner interviews for many years, and those are picked up by Affaire Decor magazine. And I've written assorted freelance pieces also. So I have written in a lot of genres. People ask me if there's a genre that I wanted to try that I haven't tried. And the answer is not really. There may be genres I haven't tried, but I've never stopped myself. I've never said you can't. I've always said, why not? Because, again, I'm a Gemini. It's what makes me happy. People will hear me say that I share a birthday with Prince. Why do I relate to that with my writing? Well, because this is the same thing he did. If he wanted to play a different instrument, he played a different instrument. If he wanted to play a certain song, he played a certain song. He did not limit his creativity. And I don't limit my creativity. So that's me. I'm a multi-genre author. And that is my brand. Because a large part of branding is knowing who you are and acting like it. And that's pretty much me. What you see is what you get. So this is it for day 2 prompt, Genre-lly Speaking. And I'm wishing you a beautiful day. It's about 2 a.m. here. I tend to stay up this late. I'm a night owl, and this is when I get those genre ideas and when I do a lot of my fresh new pages and new projects. They don't pop into my head at 10 a.m. or noon or even 2. They pop into my head in the evening. So I like to catch them and get them down on paper when I can. But I need to get some sleep now, so I'm wishing you a beautiful day, and thank you for listening. There will be a prompt for each day of March of the Writers, and I will be answering all of the prompts in time.